Buhari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
President Muhammadu Buhari taking the oath of office in 2015. He took over at a time the nation is faced with several challenges, one of which is insecurity, signposted by the insurgency in the northeast of the country. Boko Haram elements had hosted their flags in many areas of Borno State. People were maimed and killed, properties destroyed, and many more in refugee camps. There were pockets of ethno-religious violence across some states, coupled with armed robbery in the west, agitations in the Niger Delta, and kidnappings in the eastern part of the country.
I want government to help us. We are suffering here. You see how many days here? Mosquito biting us, even to sleeping. We don't know where we are sleeping. We are just sleeping in the ground. That's why I need government to help us. We don't they don't burn our house and so destroy some our ministry. Even close myself, see as I am now. Shed and Chonika here.
It's by God's grace that we escape. As I'm telling you, we lost so many of our friends, so many things. We lost so many things. Your son, me especially, we lost life and property.
The new administration campaigned on and promised to focus on 3 areas of priority: fighting insecurity and corruption, and fixing the economy.
We face enormous challenges. Insecurity.
The president's inaugural speech gave insight into how he intends to tackle the Boko Haram insurgents.
The most immediate is Boko Haram's insurgency. Progress has been made in recent weeks by our security forces, but victory cannot be achieved by basing the command and control center in Abuja. The command center will be relocated to Maiduguri and remain until Boko Haram is completely subdued. But we cannot claim to have defeated Boko Haram without rescuing the Chibok girls and all other innocent persons held hostages by the insurgents. This government will do all it can to rescue them alive. Boko Haram is a typical example of small fires causing large fires. An eccentric and unorthodox preacher with a tiny following was given posthumous fame and following by his extrajudicial murder at the hands of the police.
Monies were spent on training and procurement of military hardware. The president also renewed the push for collaboration with neighboring countries.
The time has come for the evil of Boko Haram to be brought to a definitive end.
The military operations, with the support of the civilian JTF, took the fight to the insurgents. They took apart the Sambisa forest, the Boko Haram stronghold.
Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
President Buhari visited troops on the front line in a move regarded as a morale booster. He was there to celebrate with the army as it showcased its capabilities.
I promised that this administration will tackle the challenges of insecurity, poor economy, and fight corruption. We are all witnesses to the fact that our once battered economy as a nation has exited recession and is once again vibrant. Our nation is safe again thanks to the efforts of our security agencies. This does not mean there are no challenges. There are pockets of violence in several states, some deliberately instigated by disgruntled politicians who have lost all arguments and are desperate to cause mayhem as a way of seeking relevance. We shall fish them out and punish them according to the provision of law.
4 years on, authorities say the terrorists have been pushed to the fringes of the forest and the Lake Chad, with occasional forays into villages in the 3 states of Borno, Yobe and Adamawa. The military also step up operations on several fronts, bringing about relative peace in the Niger Delta and the southeast. Other crises, however, soon sprouted. Skirmishes between herders and farmers in the north-central states and cattle rustling and banditry in the northwest. The situation is worsened by the recent spate of kidnappings in some states. The security agencies, however, say they have what it takes to check the violence, apprehend perpetrators and mop up arms. The Nigeria Police has unveiled one such strategy, codenamed Operation Puff Adder.
The Nigeria Police Force, in collaboration with the Nigerian military and other security services, has commenced Operation Puff Adder, which is a full-scale security offensive against the bandits.
The forces announced the arrest of over 2,000 suspects with over 800 illegal arms recovered.
The Inspector General of Police, IGP Mohammed Abubakar Damain PMMNI, has ordered all zonal AIGs and commissioners of police nationwide to step up securities in and around their areas of responsibilities. The instructions of the IGP are very clear. Commissioners of police must put in place adequate security arrangements.
The meetings between the president, service chiefs and heads of other security agencies in the country is now more frequent, with the objective of taming the menace of insecurity.
Mr. President was happy with the situation and the effort that the armed services and the security agencies are carrying out to tackle the security challenges. Another area of concern was the arms inflow into the nation. It's only God, perhaps, that can police such an expanse of border that we have. That's an area that Mr. President has directed that we do all that we can as well to ensure that we block the gaps and those security areas that we also need to address.
Boko Haram bombings and large-scale attacks may have abated, but citizens continue to live with fear in some parts of the country. Experts have established a direct correlation between insecurity and the economy.
Our economy is virtually being grounded by this insecurity, which, if you juxtapose it to other situations in the country, you find out that they are all interconnected. So the earlier we sit down to start thinking through how to connect each dot and start solving this, the better for us.
Poverty, unemployment is also a condition for insecurity.
In 2015, the economy was struggling and finally dipped into recession in 2016. Many experts believe they saw it coming. The government took bold steps with the central bank working hard to stabilize the naira. The central bank also embarked on deliberate plans to boost agriculture.
ACTMIS has been designed to be implemented in 3 broad components, namely direct, indirect, and developmental components. Under the direct component of the ACTMIS, beneficiaries can access loans to a limit of 10 million naira at interest rate of 5% per annum and a maximum tenure of up to 7 years. There is also a moratorium period of 18 months on principal and 6 months on interest element, depending on the nature of the business. However, it is mandatory that all loans beneficiaries must have valid BVN, which shall be registered on the National Collateral Registry and used to track repayments and blacklist any defaulter. At this juncture, I must emphasize that the interest rate of 5% per annum being offered under the ACSMIS further attests to the unflinching commitment of the deposit money banks in Nigeria to support entrepreneurs to actualize their dreams and ensure that the twin goals of increased employment and poverty reduction are attained. Under the indirect component of the scheme, beneficiaries can access equity and quasi-equity investments of up to 10 years with an initial lock-up period of 3 years before divestment. Finally, the developmental component of the scheme shall be used for capacity building and technical assistance to support beneficiaries.
Through the Anchor Borrowers Program and other initiatives, farmers across the country received assistance running into billions of naira, with plans to reach out to the textile sector. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is leading the economic team and came up with the Economic Growth and Recovery Plan (ERGP) and sparing no efforts in its implementation.
The macroeconomic environment has stabilized and is gradually recovering. There is renewed confidence, but we continue to stay focused to make sure that we build on that momentum.
The ERGP Focus Labs have succeeded in identifying more than $22.5 billion in private investments from about 164 projects that can be unlocked. Of this amount, $10.9 billion of them are what we call most ready projects. That is, that we're almost sure to unlock these projects and accelerate their delivery by the private sector.
An immediate fallout of the plan is the appreciation on the ease of doing business global ranking. The economy slowly came out of recession, inflation dropped, and the country's external reserves grew.
Inflation has gone down month by month, almost 8-9 consecutive times. One of the drivers, of course, of interest rates is inflation.
Today, the country is said to have cut its rice imports by about 90%. Billions have been saved, with more money in the pockets of local farmers.
In most states where data has been measured about increase in yield, which is the most significant impact achieved under this program, has been that yields have increased from as low as 1 ton per hectare in many states to as high as an average of as high as 7 tons per hectare. So even if the hectareage under production remains the same, that means there is at least a 5-fold, 6-fold increase in paddy production.
The Presidential Fertilizer Initiative saw the revitalization of moribund blending plants. In the area of infrastructure, the government is said to have spent 2.7 trillion naira in 2016 and 2017 fiscal year.
The budget of 2014 was about only 28 billion naira for the whole of 34,000 kilometers of Nigerian roads. When Buhari came in, he moved the budget from 28 billion to 220 billion on infrastructure. After a year again, he moved it to about 300 billion. And it's gone up and up. So therefore, projects executed by President Buhari are enormous. Some projects that were neglected for at least 18 years, they are back on track. Take example, the Kano-Abuja road that has been neglected, it was built during Babangida administration, never been patched by any government, any civilian government, until when Buhari came in, he patched the road and he's doing a 3-lane dualized road all the way from Kano to Abuja.
The restoration of rail transportation in some parts of the country is a big boost for the Buhari-led government. One such is the Abuja-Kaduna train service. In spite of some marginal gains over the years, the power situation in the country has remained dogged by challenges. Authorities have continued to look for the best option to solve the poor power supply in the country, with all of its crippling effect on the economy.
Most of the countries we compare ourselves, we don't get all of their power on the grid. Some are off grid. And therefore, one of the things that we have initiated is to promote off-grid capacities as alternatives to the on-grid capacities. And so we are using some of our agencies like Rural Electrification Agency to target clusters, economic clusters, markets, universities, and so on and so forth, to ensure that power can be deployed very rapidly and quickly to those clusters.
The government paid pensions, granted tax amnesty, and launched what has come to be known as the most ambitious social welfare program in the history of Nigeria.
The social investment programs have cumulatively made a direct impact on over 12 million beneficiaries and over 30 million secondary beneficiaries, comprising the cooks, the farmers, families, employees, and members of the community.
It represents the commitment and the promises that were made that we will set aside a significant amount of money to address issues of poverty, the deprived. That it's important that this is done. And so the 500 billion naira, which we started in 2016, has been retained.
The trader money readily comes to mind.
We have done the one before of the bigger traders. That one is cheap. 100,000, 120,000. But we will do that if you do well with the 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, then we can increase it.
However, there are voices of those who believe the country's rising debt profile portends a challenge.
Also aware of the further analysis of Nigeria's external and domestic debt, which revealed that the external debt grew to 17.8 billion in June 2018 from 10 billion in 2015.
A third priority area for the Buhari administration is the fight to rid the country of corruption.
Corruption is an existential threat to Nigeria.
Its effect on the country's fortune is profound. Arguably, it is at the root of massive poverty, poor infrastructure, and insecurity.
A recent PricewaterhouseCoopers study titled "The Impact of Corruption on the Nigerian Economy" made the following general findings and conclusions on the effects of corruption. One, that corruption has a dynamic impact which is felt more by poorer households and smaller companies. Secondly, that countries with higher corruption are associated with lower tax revenues and lower expenditures as a percentage of GDP in the most important indicators of human development, namely health and education. Corruption is also associated, they say, with the erosion of talent in public institutions, and therefore government's effectiveness is eroded. For, they say, corruption usually needs the creation of unnecessary bureaucracy to enable further opportunities for bribes.
In 4 years, the leading anti-graft agencies have reported successes. Monies and property have been recovered, with some high-profile individuals put behind bars.
In the rot of the previous 16 years, in the last 4 years, we have had occasions of heavy recovery of humongous amounts of money, which has been invested in social programs.
Opinions on the level of success is divided.
We have a public procurement law in place which is not being actually complied with, and most of the corruption actually are done, within the public procurement. We have corruption in the defense and security sector, which is also making our lives and our country vulnerable to, insecurity.
In the course of 4 years, there is an uproar about methods being adopted and a proper record of all recoveries.
First and foremost, you need to even have a legal framework on how to recover, how to manage the recovered, asset. Right now, as I speak to you, we do not have, legal framework on how to manage the recovered asset.
In response, the government set up an audit committee that had since submitted its report. The single treasury account is said to be largely effective in pooling together government resources and stopping leakages. It is, however, not foolproof.
IPPIS and GIPMIS has significantly reduced bureaucratic corruption in Nigeria. This is attributable to factors such as reduction in human interface, elimination of direct access to cash resources, easy tracing of transactions, oversight of the payroll by the responsible agency, etc. The payment systems are, however, not foolproof, as our findings reveal that there is need for us to maintain a vigilant watch over their operations. We therefore request Mr. President to mandate the stakeholders to note the in-depth work conducted on these systems and implement the remedial measures profiled in the report.
There is increased awareness on the risks that come with corrupt acts.
Corruption had reduced significantly because of Muhammadu Buhari's body language. His body language is that of fighting corruption. And so anybody who wants to be corrupt will be afraid to be close to him. So that body language alone has helped to give Nigeria a better image outside the country when you talk about corruption.
The country is far from surmounting its challenges, but officials believe a solid foundation has been laid in the last 4 years. Governors of the ruling APC honored the president recently, believing the next 4 years will be better.
So we're here basically to honor Mr. President because we have enjoyed a wonderful working relationship as governors with him. And his purposeful leadership is what we have come to encourage him, even as we depart as governors of our various states.
And defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Second oath of office on May 29, 2019. The campaign for this second coming is tagged Next Level. A thrust of the agenda is that the administration will still focus primarily on earlier promises.
What we have seen so far in this first term is like a child's play. Like the Americans will say, you ain't seen anything. In the next level, you will see a lot of infrastructure.
No doubt, the three issues of security, the economy and fight against corruption remain as important as ever.
Unemployment can be tackled, then the issue of insecurity will be tackled because we'll have less people idle.
They have to have a clear economic development policy. They shouldn't immediately think of trying to layer infrastructure and everything in one go.
I will urge Mr. President to identify committed, patriotic, honest, experienced Nigerians to be appointed in different sectors.
The president traveled to several countries in the last 4 years for diplomatic and multinational engagements. Whereas there are those who believe some of them are unnecessary, the presidency thinks otherwise.
If you say all the work is at home and you refuse to go out, it's not balanced. It's both. See what we're doing with China today. It all started because the president went to China as far back as April 2016.
As the journey for next 4 years begin to unfold, there are pointers to what may lie ahead.
We are committed to deepening the work we started this first term, such that nations' assets and resources continue to be organized and utilized to do good for the common man.
Our next level is to create the environment for collaboration between our agencies, civil society, and other stakeholders.
We hope that with the implementation of the Strategic Revenue Initiative, we will be able to improve the revenue performance of the federal budget from 55% to a minimum of 65%.
The Buhari administration says next level means consolidating on the gains of the first 4 years. So as the president settles into a second term of office, expectations remain high that the government will deliver on its promises to the people.